guys, it's Amy. Welcome back to Too Blessed. So, I've been wanting to share some of my recipes with you, and we are right now doing, of course, low sodium because of my kidney disease, and my husband and I are also trying to do a little bit lower carb. We're not doing like keto or anything like that, but we are trying to limit our carb intake anyway. So I've got a few recipes that I have kind of developed on my own to be what I want them to be. So I thought I would start sharing some of those with you. And so today I'm going to share my recipe for meatloaf. So I'm going to go ahead and get this set up and I will show you how I make my meatloaf. Okay, so this is a fairly basic meatloaf recipe. Now I use ground turkey. So what I have in the bowl here is a pound of ground turkey. Generally, when I make meatloaf, I usually like to do 2 pounds just because I like to make like 2 of them at a time and then have extras to save for another meal. But today, this is all I have, so I'm starting with that. Like I said, I always use turkey. Turkey usually has a lot more liquid in it than ground beef does. I don't know if you can tell that by looking, but there's a lot of like water in here. So a turkey meatloaf generally is going to turn out a little softer than a one made with ground beef. You could also do a combination of ground beef and ground turkey. I used to do that, and then I just started switching over to just all ground turkey. So what I'm using here is just some plain breadcrumbs. Because if you look at the sodium, there's 190 milligrams of sodium in a quarter cup. You can also use like the flavored breadcrumbs. They make like Italian flavored ones. I've used those before, but of course they have a little bit more sodium, so I try to avoid those. Then I'm also going to add some Parmesan cheese. I don't measure anything. I generally just kind of sprinkle things in until they look right. And that's usually how I do my cooking. Then we're going to do some basic seasonings. I've got some garlic powder, just a little bit. My meatloaf tends to run on the kind of Italian flavored side, I guess you would say, because I use like Italian seasoning and Parmesan cheese. This is some onion powder. I like to put in a little bit of poultry seasoning. I feel like that just kind of adds a nice little, especially with the ground turkey, it adds a nice flavor. And I think, if I remember, I think my mom's meatloaf that she made when we were kids, which I use her recipe sometimes too, I think it had poultry seasoning in it. So it always kind of reminds me of her meatloaf. And then this is Italian seasoning. Again, we're just gonna, actually, I think I'm gonna do it this way so I can go faster. Because I know I want to add a good bit of Italian seasoning. So we'll do it like that. And then just a little bit of that. I'm not even going to try to say it and have people laughing at me. Okay, so I just kind of dump everything in and then I start mixing it. And yes, usually meatloaf would have an egg in it. And normally I would put an egg in it. I happen to be out of eggs. So we're just kind of going with what we have. It's still going to taste exactly the same. It just might not hold its shape as well. So it's not too big of a deal. Okay, I think I'm going to add, now this is where we start adjusting. I'm going to add just another little sprinkle of the breadcrumbs. Now you can use all different things as binders in meatloaf. I've seen people use oatmeal. My mom's recipe actually uses white bread that is soaked in milk, and then you mix that in with the meat, and I love the texture that that gives to meatloaf, but it doesn't work very well with the turkey because, like I said, the turkey is already softer than ground beef would be, so I usually only use that method when I'm doing a beef meatloaf. Okay, so then what I do is I kind of smell it, which might seem weird. But I can kind of tell now, because I've made it so many times, I can tell by the smell if I need to add anything additional. So in this case, I want to add a little bit more garlic. or a lot. I'm going to add a little bit more of this. And we'll see how that does. Okay, yep, that very much improved the smell of it. Now, one thing you can do with meatloaf, if you're experimenting with a recipe, you can take a small amount of this and you could cook it on your stovetop. Just a tiny little bit. You could cook it on your stovetop and then you'd be able to taste it and see if you want to adjust the seasonings before you cook a whole meatloaf. So I've got just this glass pan here that I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And I'm not really worried about making like a loaf shape. It's going to taste the same no matter what it looks like, right? Okay, so that, I mean, really super quick. That's about all it takes. So I'm going to bake this. I don't honestly know the specific time, probably like 30 to 45 minutes, something like that. I will look it up and I'll put the recipe, the basic recipe, in the description box so that you can see that. And then I'll probably bake it for about 30 minutes, and then if it looks like it's almost done, I will add the sauce on top. Generally, I would use ketchup. Ketchup has a lot of sodium. It also has a lot of sugar. So we don't really even have any ketchup in the house right now, I don't think. So I'm just going to use this tomato sauce that is no salt added. And usually I mix it with some corn syrup. I'm also out of corn syrup. So the last time I made meatloaf, I did this and it worked really well. I'm going to take the tomato sauce, mix it with a little bit of brown sugar and some of this. And then that will be my sauce that I put on top of the meatloaf. So I think about 30 minutes it'll bake. I'll put the sauce on and then do like another 15 to 20, and that should be pretty good. So I will try to come back at the end and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here is the meatloaf after it's been in there probably about 30 minutes. And so now I'm just going to put some of this sauce on here. It's a little bit runny. So like I said, I'm just going to put this on and then I will put it back in the oven. It's probably going to need, I'm guessing, at least another 20 minutes because it's still pretty soft feeling. All right, so I'm going to get that back in there. Okay, so here is the finished meatloaf. It is all done and it's still bubbling. So we are getting ready to go eat this. And so that is all I have for this video. If you're new here, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. I've got some more videos coming up, hopefully in the very near future. So thanks for watching this video, guys, and I will see you in the next one.